or I'll just do it right now. So our next speaker, who is also virtual, is Dr. Amelie Ramirez. She is the director of the Institute for Health Promotion Research and associate director of the Cancer Outreach and Engagement at Mays Cancer Center, UT Health in San Antonio. Dr. Ramirez will be speaking about accrual of Latinos into clinical trials from the Cancer Center perspective. So Dr. Ramirez is going to present it remotely. So Dr. Ramirez, can you unmute your mic on your side?
Patty, I sent it in.
Oh, there you go. You're unmuted. We can hear you now.
Patty, but I sent it virtually. I sent it in.
Yes, but they just have your PowerPoint, not a recording.
Oh. I should have had a recording to go along with it, but I can.
Okay. Can you give it now? Or
I can't see the slides.
I can control the slides and I can tell you where I am.
Okay.
If that would help. I'll do that from the
I
podium.
wanted to share with you a quote from Alondra Nelson. Never before in living memory have the connection between our scientific world and our social world been quite so stark as they are today. I believe we have a responsibility to work together to make sure that our science and technology reflects us. I think we all know that these last 2 years, due to the pandemic, we've seen a lot of issues, societal issues that we had not seen before, not recognized before. They've been there, but we just didn't recognize them. And one of those areas now is really being truly diverse in the individuals that we accrue to our clinical trials, because we want to make sure that treatments that are available can really help as many people as possible. So my presentation today is to share a little bit about what we've been doing in here at the Mays Cancer Center. First of all, I wanted to share some of the cancer health disparities that we have acknowledged that have been impacting our community in South Texas. First of all, our catchment area for the Cancer Center is composed of 38 counties, about a total population of about 5 million. But the uniqueness of our population is that almost 70% of our population is Hispanic. Here in South Texas, we tend to use Hispanic more so than my colleagues in the East and West Coast, who refer to themselves as Latino, mainly because we majority come from Mexico, but also this was a term that we've just have grown up with here in the central U.S. I think it's a little bit more common than even Latinx or Latino or Latina. So, but some of the demographic characteristics of our population is that about 40% of our population is younger than 25 years of age. We have a high proportion of our population that still speaks Spanish as their primary language, but we do also have a high poverty rate. Almost 25% of our population lives in poverty, and about 26% of them have not completed high school education. So all of these are social demographics and social determinants that really impact their ability to participate trials. And so we try to be very sensitive and concerning and embracing and better understanding some of those barriers. So one of the first things that I did when I arrived here at the Cancer Center was to try to better understand what was truly impacting our South Texas population. So we developed a report that was called the South Texas Health Status Review Report, and we've been updating this periodically. And what it has shown us is that breast cancer is a leading cancer here in Texas, a little bit lower than the national level, but still fairly high for all of Texas, and still fairly high for South Texas, and even among South Texans. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is that as you see these cancers here, cancer has now become the leading cause of death for Hispanics or Latinos, and we don't understand why. We don't know what's contributing to that increase in cancer, and that it's expected to increase by 142% over the next 10 years or so. And so this exponential increase in cancer is something we need to better understand. So participation in clinical trials, the timing for this couldn't be more important because, as I said, cancer is the leading cause of death for our population. So we need to make sure we're getting treatments available to them. And the other reason is that now Latinos make up 18% of the U.S. population. We are the largest minority population in the United States, yet we're underrepresented in clinical trials, less than about 10% in NCI trials, and less than 4% in drug trials. Many of our studies have helped us better understand what are some of those barriers to participation in clinical trials. One of them is the lack of awareness of clinical trials. You know, what are trials? Why are we using the word trial? A participant once told me, isn't that more of a legal term? Others just didn't understand what a trial was. They truly had a lack of knowledge about how the disease started and what treatment opportunities were available to them. Many times the programs that we had were not really tailored to the culture and language of our population. And most of all, Latinos still have a low coverage in terms of health insurance. So that truly impacts their ability to have some of the preliminary tests covered for in clinical trials. So there's more cost oftentimes involved for some of our families. as well as traveling to a cancer center is difficult for them. Here in Texas, to come to the Mays Cancer Center from what we call the Rio Grande Valley can be up to 4 to 4.5 hours. In addition to this study that helped us understand what were some of the barriers, we also asked what would encourage you to participate in a clinical trial. And some of the responses that the participants provided was if they trusted their doctor, if they trusted the center where the trial was being conducted, and most of all, if they felt the trial would help them. Obviously, that feeling of hope that maybe their cancer could be cured, but also more futuristic, maybe it can help other patients with cancer as well. And then also having information that was easily understood was important to them. But oftentimes within the Latino community, family is very important, and sometimes it's a family decision. So making sure that they had encouragement from their family also helped increase their participation in clinical trials. So I'd like to share with you a few projects that we feel are helping to increase and to diversify our clinical trials. One of them is called I Have a Choice, or there are the Choices Project. And this project was funded with support from the Susan G. Komen Foundation, in which we are very grateful that we were able to do this study. With this, we developed some videos that had real role model stories in terms of why they wanted to participate in a clinical trial. We also added a patient navigator to help be available to answer any questions that our breast cancer patients or their family members may have had. And all of this helped to contribute to helping them make a more informed decision about the clinical trial, whether they should participate or not. This study had 3 components, is that we randomized our treatment group into groups that had never heard about a trial, to a group that was maybe had heard some information but had never participated in a trial. And the third group was a little bit more knowledgeable about what are clinical trials, but again, had not participated in a trial. So this study really focused on what can we do to enhance their knowledge and attitudes about trials, how could we increase their self-efficacy, and how could we make sure that they felt comfortable discussing this trial with their doctor and or a family member. The intervention group was compared to a control group, and what we found in the intervention group that we were able to increase their perceived understanding of the clinical trials, and that it increased their consideration of clinical trials as a treatment option, and that they were more likely to change their stages of change. For example, if someone who had never heard about it now felt a little bit more compelled to say, well, you know what, I think I might participate. And so their intention to change was there. And then also that we were able to increase their likelihood to talk to their doctor about the clinical trial, to ask a few more questions, and to also discuss that with their family or friends, and so that they were more enlightened to talk about the pros and cons of participating in a trial. So the project also helped us better understand that it's just not about increasing awareness to participating in a trial, but you had to think broader than that. And another was, trying to better understand what were some of the barriers of participation, and that they're really complex and multifaceted. For example, you need to consider the health system. Were there bilingual signs? Was it easy to navigate where you needed to go to see your doctor or to go for your appointment? Was your provider able to speak to you in a language that you understood? So some of these things were, and if not, did they have someone available to help you with translation? We found that these things were truly important, and that the addition of a patient navigator really was important to helping address some of these more structural barriers, such as language and logistics, things that perhaps some of our providers or some of the other clinical staff may not have the time to do because of their patient volume. but the other was, don't assume we know it all. You really need to have the patient, the advocate, as part of your team so that you really understand what the patient is going through. Also, that pre-testing was critical, and that empowering interventions such as the one that we had designed really can increase and foster self-efficacy and provide that patient with a sense of control that they could make an informed decision regarding their treatment options. So this was the key component of our study. We were able to document that the development of a computer-based video programs are, with a patient navigator, are an effective strategy to increase patient knowledge and understanding of clinical trials and to promote their participation in clinical research. Another activity that that has impacted our thinking throughout the Cancer Center is that we developed a committee to specifically look at minority accrual. And we meet on a quarterly basis. What can we do to create a better situations for our patients? So we review the studies that are going on. We review which of those are not so restrictive. You know, some of the trials just require a low number, others require larger numbers. And what did we do to facilitate this? So we worked with our clinicians. We identified what some of the barriers were, and we implemented a plan that would help us expand, you know, our understanding of the clinical trials, and also to increase physician education and ask if they needed assistance with kind of community outreach for promoting their trials. All of this went towards developing what we call the minority accrual plan. And anytime a trial is open, we send this checklist to our clinicians and ask them to go through the questions. Is there a consent form available in Spanish? Do they need somebody who's bilingual, you know, as they're registering participants? All of these kinds of tools are there so that we can help the PI of the study do a better job in ensuring that they have a more diverse population participating in their studies. And we were able to see that we were able to document that the increase was small, but we're getting better at this in terms of increasing the diversity of our trials. Something else that we're doing is understanding of clinical trials is difficult. Finding the right time to talk to someone about clinical trials has been a little difficult. Many times individuals kind of don't want to think about it. It's not a place that they want to go to or think about that they could become ill and might need a clinical trial. So we really felt that we needed to do more about raising the awareness about clinical trials in our population. We have a program called Salud America that was originally funded through the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And actually it was started as an obesity prevention program and now has expanded really into a multi-disease entity and educational platform. We've now grown our network to over 500,000 individuals across the U.S., and we engage with them via the web, through social media, emails, and through various partners. But we've now added a component on clinical trial accrual. So we've developed an infrastructure that really focuses on Latino-focused recruitment strategies so that we can increase clinical trials, not only for our Cancer Center, but also we're working with our Alzheimer's Center as well. So we have three major components. One is to promote the clinical trials, in this case with our Cancer Center, talking about different studies that are available. One that I just want to point out real quickly is that we're really excited that we are conducting the first survivorship trial that focuses on Latinos, collaborating with my colleagues, Frank Benedo from the University of Miami at the Sylvester Cancer Center and our Mays Cancer Center, of which I'm a multi-PI. We're going to be recruiting 3,000 Latinos to participate in this study, about 1,500 from each of our locations. So we just now getting started on this, but it's really an important important effort for us in developing this cohort. The second component is that we really want to uplift stories of Latino role models in clinical trials. We want to utilize their words in terms of why they wanted to participate in this trial so that they can make others feel comfortable. We call this our social cognitive theory. This is a framework that where by seeing other individuals like yourself, you're more likely to participate in that particular action. In this case, it's obviously the clinical trials that we're trying to promote, but it also just increases knowledge and self-efficacy in an individual. And the third component of the program is that we want our health system and our physicians to pay attention to potential implicit biases. Oftentimes we've heard clinicians say maybe that trial wouldn't be offered to a patient because they think, well, they'll have difficulty with transportation, or they may not show up all the time, and so forth. And so we really need to look at this differently and say, don't look at it as a barrier, but look at it as how can we help that patient participate? Because most of all, as we know, we want whatever comes out of a clinical trial, is it a new treatment or a new drug, then we want to make sure that it's applicable to as many people as possible. So we really want to go about in terms of how can we make people know, do they have a bias? And if so, what they can go do to reduce that bias. So we've developed what we call our action packs. You can take a little test to see if you're biased, what you can do to change, or how can you use this action pack in your own community to really help improve and decrease potential biases that are going on. And last but not least, I wanted to share with you that I have been passionate about reaching out to our Latino community to help improve their health. As I said, cancer is the #1 cause of death for Latinos. We don't know why it's this high, and so that we need to do much more research. And some of the cancers, in addition to breast cancer, some of the cancers are cancers that have not been studied as much. So I have started a conference. It's called Advancing the Science of Cancer in Latinos, where I bring together researchers that truly just focus on their studies that they've done with Latino populations. And it's anywhere from prevention through survivorship, new treatments, new diagnostics, and that we share with one another. And our next conference is coming up in February of 2022. So we hope that you'll make plans to come and participate with us. And last but not least, we've just recently are doing a new series with Genentech and other partners who may want to partner with us. So if you're out there and you want to join us on this, please let us know. We're going to be hosting a series of webinars to help healthcare professionals and community members understand what we need to do to take action to improve health equity, not only for South Texas, but on a national basis as well. We have 6 topics that we'll be covering between now and October of 2022, and looking and asking questions. You know, why are we seeing these biases? Why are we seeing higher cancer rates in Latinos, and what can we do about it? So I hope that you'll take time to join us at salud.to/equity webinars to help and listen more about what we're up to. And I can't thank you enough. I can't thank Komen enough for all their support over all of these years. So it's a pleasure again to be here with all of you, and I'll be glad to take any questions. Thank you.